All right, we are back with another edition of the Seminole Sidelines FSU Spring Practice Preview. And today I am joined by Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein as we preview, probably at least offensively, the most anticipated position group on the team or on the offensive side of the ball, the tight ends. And obviously the reason for that is the additions of Kyle Morlock and Jaheim Bell. And of course, you do lose Cam McDonald, but you return six scholarship tight ends with Marquise Douglas, Jaheim Bell, Kyle Morlock, Preston Daniel, Brian Courtney, Jarrell Powers, and Jackson West. Just your overall thoughts on how you feel about this group. Do you feel better about the tight end position going into spring 2023 than you did going into spring 2022 or even fall of 2022?
Yeah, I still think there's a lot of question marks regarding the tight end position just because you really haven't seen any of these guys do it yet, and that's always a concern. You guys will get a little bit better idea of what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks in spring practice, what these guys are capable of. They don't really have one guy that could do both the blocking and the receiving, so they're going to have guys that kind of have be put in certain situations if they're going to go become more of a heavy run type team in certain situations, that you'll probably have a guy like Morlock back out there. And then when they get into where they want to open up the offense a little bit, you'll have more of the kid that came from South Carolina in their offense.
Yeah, listen, I do think it gives them some flexibility, at least personnel group wise, what they can do with 11 personnel, what they can do with 12 personnel. I would think you would probably see some 3 tight end sets, but I think that I feel better about the position than I did a year ago. Marquise Douglas is a year older. He should be coming into his own as a tight end. He should be improved as a pass blocker. Another offseason in the weight room. Kyle, obviously Preston Daniel returns. He had 3 catches this year in 2022, including a big catch against Louisville. He's a guy that has continued to define his role as he's been around. So you've got some things you can do, run package and pass package, as you alluded to. And then you've got Jaheim Bell, who over the course of his career at South Carolina, 56 catches, 775 yards, 80 rushes for 301. And then you've got Kyle Morlock, 57 catches for 890 yards and 11 TDs in 24 games. How do we know Jaheim Bell is going to probably be used all over the place, from a unit tight end to a H-back to a running back to a slot receiver. Let's talk about him. What do you see him bringing to this offense and how he's going to allow Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins to continue to expand?
Well, I think what you're going to see is when you go back and you watch some of the Memphis film at Memphis, Mike really liked to use 2 and 3 tight end sets. I think that's where Kyle and Jaheim and Marquise come into that this is going to be the first time while he's been coach at FSU that he could have 2 and 3 tight end packages and really get even more physical on those edges running the ball. I mean, they've been using more receivers to do some of that dirty work. I think he likes to use those guys more involved in the run game. So I think you'll see the offense open up even more. I think they'll be able to get a lot more creative, especially down the seams. If you could beat defenses down the seam with the tight end, it really opens up everything else. It allows you to open up the playbook. They have not opened up the whole playbook of what Norvell likes to do. If you go back, like I said, to the Memphis days of him running that offense and stuff he's done in the past, he's been selective as advancing this offense. But where he wants to really go, he needs these 2 and 3 tight end set packages with these tight ends because of some of the stuff he really likes to do in the run game. They run a lot of power. They've done it. I think they've used smoke and mirrors a lot of times. I think with 2 or 3 tight ends now, he's going to be able to do some of the stuff that he hasn't been able to do before.
All right, and then let's start with who we think is going to come in, and he should come in as a starter. Marquise Douglas should start the spring as a starter. Huge kid. They've been creative in the way they get the ball on tight end screens. We've seen them go heavy and have him line up at the tackle. We saw that in Oklahoma. Just talk about what you think, where Marquise can go as he continues to develop as a tight end.
Marquison's biggest problem has been, trimming down. He came in, he almost looked like an offensive lineman when he first got to Florida State. So if he could get into that 255, 260-pound range, he'll be able to hold up against the run. But he's athletic enough. You've seen him run in space. He runs well enough that he can create some mismatches. You put a big kid like him on a linebacker or a smaller DB1, he's going to be faster than most of those linebackers, and he gives you that ability to be too big for some DBs to cover. So he becomes a mismatch, especially in Norvell's offense.
Yeah, he's listed at 6'4", 270 pounds entering spring practice, and obviously is a guy that is hard to tackle when he gets the ball. We've seen that. You don't want to tackle him high. You don't want to have to tackle him all, really, once he gets moving. But a guy that I think is a guy that has a chance to be the – he's not going to be the pass threat that Bell and Morlock are, but certainly a guy that creates his mismatches against zone coverage where he can use his body to wall off defenders. Obviously a guy that's hard to tackle in the open field, and a guy that should really be reaching his peak as a run blocker as he's gotten more reps this past season. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing him. As you said, he came in, and I think I know they call him Biscuit, but we called him Biscuit when we saw him the first time, as you mentioned. I thought I was like, all right, hey, there's going to be the next great offensive tackle at Florida State. I thought that he would eventually move, but obviously he has done a really good job of getting his body in shape, and at 270, and he is a big 272. I mean, he's a thick kid, so I'm looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, Morlock is a two-time All-American at the FCS level, highly successful, highly productive player. Like I said, 57 catches for 890 yards over the last 24 games of his career. Any concerns about transitioning from FCF to the major college FBS level?
Yeah, I spoke to somebody today, and there has been an adjustment period with him. He has struggled adapting to Florida State. While it's not a big town, it's a lot bigger than the town he came from in Tennessee. There's an adjustment period. We knew this was going to happen. This is kind of what we thought would happen last year with Jared Verse, is that you're taking a major step up. I mean, listen, getting 800 yards in Division II is not the same as getting 800 yards in Division I. It's a major step up, the talent level. There's a mental side of it. Hey, listen, you start to see when he gets out there for the first time and he's running with these guys, he's like, wait a second, this isn't where Shorter College. I'm not going against the same guys. So there is that adjustment period. We expect him. I'm sure he'll have his moments where he looks great in the spring. Probably will struggle a lot during the spring, especially adapting. But he's someone that, if you could get him through the summer months, get him to where he understands the mental side of it. You know how it is. The mental side of it is so important. If he gets a mental side, the physical attributes are there. It's just that mental side of being able to pick up everything and learn just a whole new type of offense and what he's been through. So if he could get through the summer months, he could probably be a productive player in the fall.
Yeah, and then of course you got we're projecting Preston Daniel as the fourth tight end. Listen, we know they're going to use 12 and 13 personnel, and we know we're probably going to get, when the final depth chart comes out before the fall 2023 season, we're probably going to see a couple of ors on there, meaning Marcus and Douglas or Jaheim Bell, or Marcus and Douglas and Jaheim Bell, depending on what what package they're going to use. But Preston Daniel is a guy that really has done a great job in his career. Has walked on at Florida State, and as I said, had a touchdown catch against Louisville that was obviously a key catch in that game, and a guy that you would think as he enters, this could be Preston's final season, but a guy that obviously has exceeded expectations as he walked on campus, has been played a vital role in short yardage and goal line packages, and we saw his role step up in the middle of the field as well this year. Just your thoughts on Preston as a redshirt junior, and obviously a guy that Mike and his crew were aware of because he is from Memphis, Tennessee. But just what are your expectations of Preston as he enters his redshirt junior year?
Yeah, I mean, he's exceeded expectations. He was a walk-on. Anytime a walk-on can give you starter minutes that you've done, he's superseded his expectations of what you'd expect out of him at Florida State. He's a solid player. He could come in. He's smart. You could see he doesn't make a ton of mental mistakes, and that's key for these coaches. They want guys that could go in there and execute the playbook and do what they ask. And he gets it done when he's in there. He's productive. He'll catch some nice passes and he can do some things. He's one of those guys. He provides quality depth. That's the one thing that you've started to see on this roster this year is that Preston before he probably shouldn't have been starting or been one of the guys in the 2 deep. But when you have a guy like him, 3rd or 4th on the depth chart that you could bring in, he's not going to hurt your offense. He's going to enhance it. He can do the things that you need to ask of him. You're in a good situation when someone like that is 4th on the depth chart with the 3 guys in front of him.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got 3 more scholarship guys behind Preston, Brian Courtney, Jarrell Powers, and Jackson West. Now, Brian played a lot of special teams this past year. Jarrell was redshirted more or less. And then, of course, Jackson was hurt and did not play a whole lot. We really were impressed with the one thing that stands out about Jarrell is his body type. He's a big, thick kid. He looks the part. How important is it that one of those 3 guys, if not all 3, to be honest with you, make a move this spring? What's your expectations from those 3 guys in the spring?
I think Jackson West is the one that needs to make the move. He's been there the longest. He was somebody that, I wasn't sure about when they were recruiting him. Then you go back and you watch his film, and he was a guy that played at a small school in northern Alabama, so there was an adjustment period. He had his moments from everything I've heard early on in spring practices and stuff, but I think he lost some of his confidence. You saw him come into some games. He would drop some passes. Something happened there, and he has to get it back together. I think he's the guy that needs to step up this spring. I didn't expect a whole lot out of Brian Courtney. You're talking about a kid that hasn't played a whole lot of tight end. Last year was the first time he ever really lined up at tight end in his football career. He was a quarterback. Many of us thought he'd possibly be a linebacker at this next level. So I think he's still a year away. And Jarrell is basically another guy redshirted last year. I think he's a year away. I think Jackson West of those 3 is the one that needs to show something this spring, or you could see him potentially enter the portal.
Now, at one time, it seemed like they had 10 or 12 guys on scholarship at tight end. That number has dwindled now either 6 or 7. You would think at this point Preston Daniel is probably on scholarship as much as he's contributed. How do you feel about that number coming out of spring? Obviously, we know we're going to see another transfer portal window open up May 1st through 15th. Do you think that we'll see all of these tight ends return for the fall?
Like I said, if Jackson West doesn't end up in that top 5 group, I could see him taking off, entering the portal. That's the thing is I don't know how many teams carry 7 tight ends, especially in this day and age of spread offenses where you'd like to have more wide receivers than tight ends. So you could see 1 or 2 of these guys decide that maybe they want to play somewhere else. They're in a good spot. Like I said, they've upgraded the position. The one thing you want to do is you want to upgrade the quality of players. They've done that. Now they've added some depth. So they're in a good spot. Even if they lose 1 or 2 of these guys, they're in a good spot overall. And we've talked about this before. It wouldn't shock me to see even you could always take somebody like Johnny Wilson and everybody will go, I think you could put him in as a spread tight end in certain situations in their offense even.
Yeah, and listen, I think the fascinating thing about this position group, because of who they have there, as we talked about, the things that you can do with a Jaheim Bell, with a Trey Benson and a Lawrence Toafili, maybe the defense sees it at 11 personnel, but you line 2 backs up in the backfield because you can move Jaheim around. I think it's fascinating. You could put Kyle Morlock and Jaheim Bell at the same time. Or Markins Douglas, are you in 12? Are you putting Jaheim in the slot? Are you putting Kyle in the slot? I mean, I think they can create some mismatches because of the personnel that they have on defense. I mean, at tight end with this particular group, because of the variation in skill sets. It does change where these guys line up. Could be outside of the what would be considered the traditional personnel grouping that they'd be with, right? So whether it's 11, 12, those are interchangeable now because of some of the talents that these guys have. And I think it's going to create help Mike create mismatches against defenses. Putting Jaheim Bell on a linebacker. Those kind of things. How do you feel about the ability, what this group offers Mike to do with the offense?
That's one thing you see with Coach Norvell is he tries to find mismatches in the defense where there's a weakness in that defense and try to attack that, whether it's a safety or a linebacker that he feels one of his skilled guys can beat one of those guys in the open field. You see it all the time. You saw it in the Miami game. He saw something early. They went deep. They scored on it. I'm real high on Jaheim Bell and what he can bring to this offense just because he's so versatile. He really is an oversized wide receiver. He's a guy that's going to be able to basically bully smaller DBs. He's too fast for linebackers to cover. You can put him in the backfield. You have Benson and him in the backfield. You don't know who's going to get the ball. It creates mismatches. And this is what you want in college football, is that you want these mismatches to take advantage of your skill set. Jaheim's a very talented guy. I think Norvell's going to have a lot of good packages for him this season.
Yeah, the one thing I'm looking forward to, besides seeing their individual development, is to see how much 13 personnel we see. If we see any two-back stuff, particularly with Jaheim. I think that the things that he can do from a personnel grouping and formational standpoint with this group could be continue to help evolve his offense as they head into the 2023 season, where there's huge expectation. Well, Fish, listen, we'll be back with some more previews before spring practice starts, but certainly want to thank you for joining us. If you are not a subscriber to the Osceola, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Obviously, you can go to our YouTube, the Osceola YouTube channel, where you'll find this. But we do have a lot of articles covering recruiting. We have got written spring practice previews for every position group that are behind the paywall. But we do have some recruiting content that's free. Please give us a try by going to floridastate.rivals.com or theosceola.com and check out our free content, and we would love for you to give us a try as a subscriber. We've got a recruiting message board. Fish, just talk a little bit about you do a fish bits segment on our recruiting message board. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you've put on there today.
We've heard some good things about the transfers. Like we said, very positive news so far about Gilbert Edmonds, that he's had a very good offseason so far. You still got to see him in pads and doing what he needs to do, but I've heard that he's basically the second best tight defensive end they feel right now, probably on the team. You look at some of what Brendan Fisk and the Daryl Jackson kid they provide. I know this. Miami was very upset that they lost Daryl Jackson. Florida State early on, supposedly there was some issues with him adapting. He's figured it out, and he's taken charge of his performance in the offseason workouts, and it has bought in now and looks to be the guy. It wouldn't be surprising if he's FSU's number one interior guy. The tight ends have looked good. Like I said, Jaheim Bell, they've liked what they've seen out of him. The biggest news is Fentrell Cypress. Supposedly he's come in, that he's probably one of the more mature players on the team. He's adapted and is probably going to end up their QB cornerback number one on their defense, that he's that good. He's been a pleasant surprise and has exceeded expectations. Once again, these guys still have to put the pads on in spring to see where they fit in. But overall, it looks good. Recruiting is still going well. It looks like Charles Lester is probably going to be a guy that we could see potentially committing early. Here's a guy that's borderline 5-star on the Rivals network. I figure he'll end up becoming a 5-star corner by the end of the year. He's got all those physicals you look for in corners: size, speed, length, can do a lot of the things that they want to do defensively in their secondary. The offensive lineman out of Clearwater Academy International, the same school as Lawrence Timmons. He looks like another guy. They say follow the visits. He's been on campus multiple times. He's a guy that we could also expect to see potentially commit before the summer's out. Overall, their recruiting is still very good this year. They have a top 5 class, according to Rivals. .com. So it looks like they're in a good spot to pull in the best class in the Mike Norvell era at Florida State. Got to keep winning. That's what it's all about. That's what's turned it around, not only through the transfer portal that kids want to come here, but now you're starting to see some of these top high school kids follow suit.
Yeah, and the dead period is over or fixing to end, and recruiting is fixing to heat back up. We are expecting to see a number of legitimate big-time prospects on campus over the next 6 weeks as Florida State starts spring practice on March 6th and concludes it on April, I believe, 17th. The spring game will be on the 15th, but they will hold at least one practice post-spring. But we're already reaching out to prospects to see who is going to be in town and when. We will have a message board post and stories coming off of that. So again, if you're not a subscriber and just listen to our podcast or watch our video cast, please go to floridastate.rivals.com. Check out our content. We have an offer article on our latest offer. Florida State has offered cornerback prospect Kai Baker yesterday from Orlando Edgewater. Very impressive player. Kai Bates. Guy that runs really well. We got a video. We broke down his video. But listen, it's fixing to get busy again. We look forward to providing you some of the best coverage out there on Florida State and college football, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Fish.